The escalating confrontation between the United States and Venezuela has once again captured the world's attention. The deployment of U.S. Navy warships near Venezuelan waters under the Trump administration has triggered political shock, diplomatic backlash, and fears of a wider regional crisis. At the heart of this drama are two leaders: Donald Trump, the U.S. president known for his aggressive foreign policy, and Nicolás Maduro, the Venezuelan leader clinging to power despite economic collapse and international pressure. This is not just a military maneuver, it is a symbol of decades of strained relations, ideological battles, and the question of U.S. dominance in Latin America. From Washington's perspective, the positioning of warships near Venezuela has been framed as part of a campaign against drug trafficking and corruption. The Trump administration repeatedly portrayed Venezuela as a failed state and a regional threat. Sending warships, therefore, was justified as a way to disrupt criminal networks and pressure Maduro. Yet, for many observers in Latin America, this naval buildup looked less like counter-narcotics and more like intimidation, an attempt to force regime change under the cover of law enforcement. The timing of this move was critical. Venezuela was already drowning in hyperinflation, food shortages, and mass migration. For Maduro, U.S. warships only confirmed his narrative that America was waging economic and political war against Venezuela. The regional reaction was swift. Many Latin American governments saw echoes of gunboat diplomacy, recalling a history when U.S. naval power was used to impose political outcomes. For decades, Latin America has struggled to balance its ties with Washington against its desire for sovereignty. This time, the warship deployment became a rallying point. Even countries ideologically divided came closer together, uniting against what they saw as unnecessary military escalation. Moderate leaders expressed skepticism, while left-leaning governments openly opposed Trump's strategy. The consensus was clear: Venezuela's crisis needs dialogue and diplomacy, not warships at its doorstep. This moment highlighted a rare unity in Latin America, an unwillingness to accept unilateral U.S. pressure. Beyond the region, this confrontation carried global implications. Venezuela still holds the world's largest proven oil reserves, making it strategically vital. Trump's pressure campaign was seen by many analysts as part of a broader effort to reshape global energy politics and limit Venezuela's ties with China and Russia. Both Beijing and Moscow had invested heavily in Caracas, giving Maduro financial and military backing. Thus, the U.S. naval buildup was not just a warning to Maduro, it was also a message to America's global rivals. Meanwhile, in the United States, public opinion was split. Supporters saw Trump's move as strong leadership. Critics warned of another costly foreign entanglement, recalling Iraq and Afghanistan. The Venezuelan opposition, too, faced a dilemma. They wanted pressure on Maduro, but feared being seen as inviting foreign aggression. This showdown cannot be understood in isolation. It is tied to a long history of U.S. intervention in Latin America. From the early 20th century to the Cold War, Washington repeatedly used economic sanctions, covert operations, and military force to shape governments in the region. Countries such as Chile, Nicaragua, Grenada, and Panama all carry scars of intervention. Each episode reinforced suspicion toward U.S. intentions, especially when framed as defending democracy while protecting American interests. For many Latin Americans, the presence of warships near Venezuela is not about democracy or drug trafficking. It is about control, power, and the continuation of an old pattern. This history explains why regional governments, even those critical of Maduro, resist military escalation. The memory of intervention is too fresh, too painful, and too familiar. At the core of this standoff lies the Venezuelan people, trapped in one of the worst economic and humanitarian crises in the modern world. Hyperinflation has eroded savings, leaving families unable to afford basic goods. Food shortages have pushed millions into hunger. Hospitals lack medicine and supplies, while millions have fled across borders in search of survival. The U.S. sanctions, while aimed at Maduro's government, have deepened the suffering of ordinary citizens. Maduro, in turn, blames Washington for creating economic warfare to destabilize his rule. For Venezuelans, the arrival of U.S. warships is not a sign of hope. It is a reminder that their homeland is caught in a global power struggle. Instead of solutions, they see competing narratives, both from their government and from foreign powers, with little relief in sight. For Trump, the Venezuela strategy was as much about domestic politics as foreign policy. Projecting strength abroad was a key part of his America First agenda. Confronting Maduro allowed Trump to appeal to anti-socialist voters, particularly within the Cuban and Venezuelan exile communities in Florida. For Maduro, the U.S. naval buildup was a political gift. It gave him the chance to present himself not as a dictator, but as a defender of Venezuela's sovereignty against imperialism. This clash therefore strengthened both leaders' narratives, even as ordinary Venezuelans bore the brunt of the crisis. The showdown in Venezuela represents more than a tactical maneuver. It reflects a struggle over the future of Latin America. Will the region continue to tolerate U.S. dominance, or will it assert its independence? Will global powers like Russia and China expand their influence, creating new fault lines in the hemisphere? And most importantly, will Venezuelans find a way out of their crisis through dialogue and negotiation? Or will they remain pawns in a geopolitical chess game? Latin America's pushback against Trump's warship deployment suggests a growing desire for autonomy. Yet the path forward is uncertain, shaped by economic pressures, political instability, and the enduring weight of history. This standoff is not just about Trump and Maduro. It is about sovereignty, intervention, and the future of Latin America. For Trump, warships projected toughness. For Maduro, they reinforced his nationalist image. For Latin America, they became a symbol of resistance against old patterns of domination. The outcome remains uncertain. Military pressure may weaken Maduro in the short term, but it also risks hardening his grip on power and prolonging Venezuela's agony. The only sustainable path forward lies not in warships, but in diplomacy, negotiation, and respect for sovereignty. The showdown in Venezuela is therefore more than a headline. It is a test of principles, a reminder of history, and a warning of what happens when power is projected without care for human consequences.